Hi, and welcome to a brand new video. So today I'm going to be tackling the problem where basically you have a list of strings, and with this list of strings, you need to see the length, or I guess find the length of a subsequence which is not found in any other string. So basically, if let's say this is a subsequence A and B. If you look, A and B is not in the other ones, so that would be a subsequence. But you're trying to find the longest uncommon subsequence, so that'd be this entire string, or you could say this entire string or this entire string. But for example, in something like this, if you have an A, you can do them the other two. If you have AA, you can also do it here, and if you have triple A, then that's found here. So that's why you return -1. So in order to solve this problem, what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through both, we're going to iterate through the array 2 times, and we're going to check whether one is a subsequence of another. And if it is, then obviously we're not going to pick it. Otherwise, we're going to test it out. A trick that we are going to use in this is, let's say that there is a letter that's not found in any of the other ones. Let's say B is not found in these two. Then obviously B is going to be in our subsequence, right? So if this character is not in if this character is in our subsequence, then we can basically take the entire string. So what I'm kind of going here is that if there's a one character that's not found in the other strings, then the entire string can be the subsequence. And that will allow us to maximize the length of the longest subsequence. So in order to solve this problem, what we're going to do is we're first going to declare a variable at the top here, and I'm going to call it max. Max is going to be the maximum length of the long sequences to start as -1 in case you can't find another alternative. And then we're going to do our stuff here, and then at the end we'll return max because that's technically our answer. So what do we do in stuff? I talked about that earlier. We first iterate through both of them, and I do recommend using a for ein range loop, not for each loop, and the reason is because if something like this occurs where two elements are the same, when you iterate through, you don't want to compare this element to the same index, but you want to compare this one to this one, even if they're not the same. So that's why we use a for ein range loop, so we can compare indexes instead of comparing actual values. So then I'm going to iterate again. And perfect. So in order to see whether or not it's valid when we are iterating through the second time, I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it temp, and I'm going to set it to true. So temp here is going to see whether or not there is a valid subsequence with this inner when we iterate through again. So if there is a valid subsequence, then we can set max to the maximum of the max or the length of the string. So we'd say for if I is not equal to j, and I'm going to create another function, and this other or method in Java, I'm going to create another method here, and this is going to check whether or not these two strings are a valid subsequence. So what I'm kind of going for here is kind of the opposite of what you may think. I'm checking to see whether it is a subsequence. And if it is a valid subsequence, then we're going to set this variable to false. So if valid subsequence of of I and strs of j. Then we're going to set temp equal to false. And we can also break out of this. We can also break out of this for loop. So now what we're doing is basically we're saying that if the element that we're currently looking at and the other elements in the array, so if those two elements have a valid subsequence, we're just breaking out of the array so that we can say if temp. So if there is no valid subsequence, then we can say max is equal to math.max, max, and strs of I dot length. So just kind of to reiterate what we're doing here, we're saying that if there is not a valid subsequence between two elements, then we're going to set the answer to the maximum of the current value and the length. Because remember I talked about if there is not a valid subsequence in one part of the array, then one part of the string, then you can just use the entire string because that has a greater value, greater length, and therefore greater answer. So the next step is to actually code the second method to see whether or not it is a valid subsequence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if a dot equals b. So if, for example, if we have something like this, then I'm going to return true because technically they are a subsequence of each other in terms of this problem, because you can have the entire string be the substring. So then next what we're going to do is I'm going to create two variables, int I equals 0 and int j equals 0. And the reason is because what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through both of these strings at once using a while loop. So we're going to say while I is less than a dot length and j is less than b dot length, we're going to say if a dot char at I not equals b dot char at j, then we're going to do I plus plus, and all the time we're going to do j plus plus. So and then at the end we're going to return whether I is equal to a dot length. So this might be a little bit confusing. What in the world does this mean? So what we're doing is we're going to iterate through basically both strings together, and we're going to see whether B contains all the characters that are inside A. So if the character at char A is equal to the character at char B, then we're going to go to the next index. Otherwise, we'll go to the next index, and always we'll go to the next index of B. So kind of I'm going first, if we have a B, C, A. So these two are equal. It's going to plus equals I and J. B and B are equal. It's going to plus equal B and B. But here you can see A is not equal to C. So it's going to pause here and it's only going to move forward J. So then you can compare A, and then you see that they're equal, so you also increase I. So by the when you reach the end of the string, if I dot length, which is basically if you iterated through the entire A and it did have a corresponding letter in B, then you return true. Otherwise, you return false because you didn't iterate through the entire A and find a matching character in B. So that's the logic of this. And also, if you want to save time efficiency, you can also say and a dot length is greater than b dot length, so that because if so let's say the first time a was this bigger one, because we're iterating through strings.length 2 times, when this one becomes B, then you'll go through it. But that means you don't have to go through it twice, if that makes sense. So let's save this and run it. So as you can see in this first example in the notepad, we got 3, and the next one we got -1. So I hope this video was helpful, and see you in the next video.